of Labor Social Welfare, Honorable Dan Wanyama, and Senator Simon Cherargei, MP, Senator Nandi County. Honorable Speaker, I have chosen to read this letter out because I find it extremely condescending on the House. Extremely condescending. And while I appreciate that the minister has opted to come to the House, he has appeared to the House on invitation by the House, not him inviting himself, as he seems to imply in this letter. Two, Honorable Speaker, even before the minister answers the questions that are before him, we would want him to tell the House which is this hearsay that he alludes to. Two, Honorable Speaker, or three, the minister says is available for open, robust parliamentary oversight within the established official mechanisms, including through the relevant oversight committees of the House. In my reading and interpretation of that statement, it seems, Honorable Speaker, that the minister is alluding that he is okay to appear before the committees, relevant committees, but he has a problem with being oversighted by plenary. And it must be on record, Honorable Speaker, neither the leader of majority nor any member of parliament is here serving at the whim of any cabinet secretary. We are here as the people's representatives to oversight cabinet secretaries and officers of government in line with our mandate as espoused in Articles 94 to 96 of our Constitution. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I found this letter rather condescending to the institution of Parliament. And when a minister says that we are raising issues on hearsay, it is only fair, not to the leader of majority or to the Honorable Anjiku Muhia who raised that issue and the other members who spoke to it. And Honorable Speaker, I do not care about what Honorable Cherargei may have said or might have said outside Parliament, whether on Twitter or Facebook or anywhere else. But what is transacted within the plenary of this House, we do so rightfully as members of Parliament who oversight government. And Honorable Speaker, for the record, I want to state it to this minister and all ministers. As leader of majority, I do not hold brief for any cabinet secretary. I am hired by the people of Kikuyu and the members of the Kenya Kwanza coalition to lead them as a first amongst equals. But that does not take away my role to oversight anybody. From His Excellency the President, in the executive, all cabinet secretaries, and anybody, whatever cadre you are in the executive, I will hold you to account and I will oversight you. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I needed that to be made clear for the record, for this cabinet secretary and others, because some may be misguided to believe that as leader of majority, I am here holding brief for cabinet secretaries. When it comes to matters of accountability, I will hold you to account as if I am the leader of minority. I will hold you to account the same way a member of ODM or Wiper would hold you to account, because that is my mandate, Honorable Speaker. But when it comes to advancing and pushing government business and agenda in the House, I will do the same with the same gusto and energy. I will oversight you. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I wanted it to be clear that as much as I work for the Kenya Kwanza Alliance as the leader of majority and for the people of Kenya, that must never be misconstrued to mean that I will not hold any minister to account. The very reason the President moved the House to amend our standing orders is because none other than the President, who has hired cabinet secretaries, want these cabinet secretaries to be accountable to the people through their elected representatives. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, allow me to now read the questions as they are on the order paper.
Give Honorable Minority Leader 2 minutes. Honorable Wandai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, I have just come to learn of that letter of 2 minutes ago. Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, that letter should have been copied to me as the leader of minority. The cabinet secretary must be reminded that in this house, the order of precedence after the speaker and the leader of majority, it is the leader of minority. And anything transacted in this house belongs to the house, not to the coalition of majority or minority. That is one. Two, I want to advise the minister to be a good student of history. When you hear Honorable Kimani Chungwa, Honorable Senator Sirarigei, Honorable Deputy Speaker Gladys Boss speak in the manner they spoke, you should take notice. Because it reminds me of, I think, 1989, when a similar narrative started here by the late Honorable Mwenje against the then Vice President Josephat Njuguna Karanja. We all know what happened in the end. But on a more serious note, this house can choose to transact its business in the manner it deems fit. It is not for anybody else to direct it how to go about transacting its business, including the business of inviting people to this house. Under Article 95, I think, Article 2, this house has got the mandate to deal with issues concerning the people, issues of concern to the country. And there is no greater issue that is of concern to the country than the plight of sportsmen and women. And therefore, this house is in order to raise those queries that it raised in the manner it did. And therefore, I would want to ask you, Mr. Speaker, that even before we go to the issues, the substantive questions, the matter of this letter needs to be addressed. Yes, by way of you making a pronouncement, where this is the way we shall be proceeding in this house. You know, as a coalition, I've got issues with ministers coming here. I'm sure you know that, Honorable Speaker. But even as they come, we must set the record straight on how they are going to engage with this house and how they're going to treat issues that emanate from this house, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, anything that is pronounced on the floor of this house does not really belong to the person making the pronouncement. It is the house. And if the leader of majority or the leader of minority or any other member raises an issue on the floor of this house, it ceases being their issue. It ceases being their personal issue. It becomes an issue of the house and for the house. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Now, Honorable, 1 minute only, Kajwang, then I give direction.
Mr. Speaker, when matters such as this arise, probably it is good enough that a few members who have been around may also share their sentiments. Mr. Speaker, with all that the majority leader and the minority leader has said, I want to take a different tangent. I think that there is a disorder in the house. Right now, there is disorder in the house. And until that disorder has been solved, the house is unable to conduct further business. I'm talking about the sanctity, the dignity, the respectability of this house. To find, when we changed the standing orders, to allow cabinet secretaries and other people that could be invited to this house to deal with us in terms of statements, we did not give them the privilege to walk into this house. They must know they are strangers. Right now, they are strangers. And at best, they can only be witnesses, whom we summon from time to time in our own wisdom, and only to participate and say the things that we want them to say here. Yes. For a witness, even before appearing before us, to give us a lengthy lecture about hearsays and say that what we are doing here, we are purporting to do the things that we are doing here. We are purporting. And to allow this witness to write to the speaker, where is even the protocol of writing to the speakers of the houses? Once we have issued the summons, and the Constitution allows us that we can summon anybody, whether in plenary or in committee, to come before us. Now, how is it that a witness decides, therefore, with, raises upon a stool and decides to address the presiding officer of this house and lectures him accordingly? And this witness is reminding us of the traditions and the culture that we should adopt when we deal with these matters.
You made your point.
No. The last point I want to make, Mr. Speaker, sir. The last point I want to make, Mr. Speaker, sir. This is the first of the issues that I've seen since we changed the standing orders. If we allow this unaddressed, then the executive or anybody else under whom we supervise will have the latitude, because there is something called precedence. I know the witness wants us to talk about the traditions. He also knows about something called precedence. If we allow him to go with this unattended, then of course we have lost our value in holding these people to account. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that there is a disorder in the House, and until this disorder has been dealt with by getting this insubordinate witness, very insubordinate witness, well, not hostile. Hostile will give me problems, but insubordinate to this House. That must be taken out before we can go. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, order. Indeed, I found, as your speaker, the content of the letter read by the majority leader strange. And this goes, majority leader, inform all cabinet ministers that they come to answer questions guided by you as the majority leader, who is the nexus between this House and the executive, and writing to Mr. Speaker after he has given direction is inadvisable. So going to the future, you may need to communicate to all cabinet secretaries on how to engage the House. And more particularly, once the chair has given direction on the matter, no minister has any right to give value judgment on that direction. Because what the content of that letter is giving value judgment on the direction of the chair. It's out of order, and to cut a long story short, Minister, you will be required to rescind in totality the contents of that letter, tender an apology to the House, then we move on with answering the questions that are before us. Go ahead, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable members of this very august House, let me, Mr. Speaker, from the outset, make it absolutely succinctly and unambiguously clear that I subject myself to the authority and oversight of this House in totality. That should not be in doubt whatsoever, Honorable Speaker. Let me also make it clear that the correspondence that has been referenced here was authored and conveyed in good faith, and I would apologize unreservedly if in any way that letter has created...
Don't give a conditional apology, Minister. Just cut a long story short. An apology should be unequivocal and clear.
Mr. Speaker.
Cut the long story short. Rescind the contents thereof. Apologize to the House. We do business. There are a lot of bills pending after this.
Mr. Speaker, may I therefore, with a lot of respect, withdraw that correspondence and unreservedly tender an apology to the Honourable House.
Thank you.
May I proceed, sir?
Let the Majority Leader read out the questions, and then you can proceed to answer.